We're in about page 24 or 25, something like that. Okay. Let me do a volume check. Can you hear me in the back okay? All right, good. All right, be turning in your Bibles to Genesis chapter 6 and be about page 24, 25 in your student guides if you have one of those. Last time we were together, we finished up a little bit on the Garden of Eden in the fall and Adam and Eve being expelled. We talked some afterwards about sin and its consequences. And we tried to make the point that sin had a lot of tentacles, that it wasn't just a problem between you and God, but it affected every aspect of your life. I offered to you the acrostic PEST, P-E-S-T, to help you kind of remember how those tentacles spread out, that sin has personal effects, that it has an effect on the environment in which you live and operate. It has an effect on you sociologically, in other words, with other people. And it obviously has an effect between you and God, so it has a theological effect. We talked about sin not just as specific acts that are condemned in Scripture, but also about sin as a dominating power, as a background noise, you might say, to the world in which we live. A number of systems that are arrayed against people of faith. And we talked about some of those. Then we moved on to the incident between Cain and Abel, how Abel was killed by Cain. And I posed the question, what makes people jealous? Somebody, I can't remember who it was, asked the question, is there any difference between jealousy and envy? Who did that? Okay, and it just engendered an awful lot of discussion, so much so that I dug into it a little bit deeper, and I'll present that to you in just a minute. And then in the 6th chapter of Genesis, we got started and talked about the Nephilim, the sons of God, and the daughters of men, and I was able to tell you, frankly, that there weren't a lot of questions that I could answer about that. I presented as much as what I had. Then we talked about the introduction of the character of Noah. And not only Noah the person, but what Noah's times were like. What do you recall from that? Yeah, yeah, wickedness everywhere. Everybody's thought from the time they got up in the morning till the time they went to sleep at night was on wicked, depraved kinds of things. Not a lot of specifics, but it says that violence was present on the earth, and that dominated human interactions as well. So, as a result of that, what was God's reaction to it? Yeah, he repented of what? Yeah, that I just kicked off this whole creation thing to start with, that I put human beings into it. So it brought him to the point that he just had this regret, and that he needed to do something about it. And what was his solution? Okay, we're gonna start all over here. He did find one man, Noah, that he admired, and he said, "I will use him to continue humanity, but for the most part, the earth as I see it right now is totally unsatisfactory, and something has to be done." So we'll talk some more about that. Now, let me go talk some more about jealousy and envy, because we had a lot of discussion on that. So I asked the question, what is the difference between jealousy and envy in Hebrew? Because that's the language we're extracting our Old Testament from. And turns out they're really, the Hebrew language does not make a distinction between the two. As you can see, if it's used as a noun, a verb, or an adjective, it doesn't matter. They are considered to be the same word. So English has some more precision attached to it. It tries to make a distinction between jealousy and envy, but the original Hebrew language does not. I also found this, and I think it will help us to understand the statement in the Old Testament that God is a jealous God. We think of jealousy in an entirely negative sense, but there's another definition of it that I think applies to God being jealous, and that is being solicitous or vigilant in maintaining or guarding something, being intolerant of unfaithfulness or rivalry. So when Scripture talks about God being jealous, I think that's the definition that it's really alluding to. So no distinction between jealousy and envy in the Hebrew language. Now you get into English, and it's a little more precise language, has a lot more words, and it tries to make that distinction. So I'll read this. I don't know how well that shows up in the very back, but jealousy is a feeling or state of resentment, bitterness, or hostility towards someone because they have something you don't. Jealousy usually occurs as a result of someone owning something you want but can't have, or having achieved some kind of success that you want to achieve but others have not been able to. This sense of jealousy is very similar in meaning to envy, which refers to a mostly negative feeling of desire for something that someone else has and you do not, like a mix of admiration and discontent. However, while envy is not necessarily malicious, jealousy usually implies a deeper resentment, perhaps because you feel you deserve the thing more than the other person, or that it is unfair that they have it and you don't. Okay, so that's the distinction in the English language. Now, when it comes to translating Hebrew into English, which is the state that we're in right now, I threw in the word covetousness because that's a word that's used in Scripture a lot. Covetousness is eager or excessive desire, especially for wealth or possession. So it doesn't imply any negative feelings toward anybody else. It's just the attitude that I don't have enough, and there'll never be enough, and I can't ever have enough. That's covetousness. Okay. Then I looked ahead to various translations and how they handle jealousy or envy. I looked up Job 5:2 as kind of a representative verse, and looked at a number of different translations. And what you'll see is the translators had problems distinguishing between the two. The King James says of Job 5:2, "For wrath killeth the foolish man, and envy slayeth the silly one." But the New Revised Standard, a more modern translation, says, surely vexation kills the fool and jealousy slays the simple. The NIV will say that resentment kills a fool and envy slays the simple. The Amplified Translation says, anger slays the foolish man and jealousy kills the simple or the naive. The Contemporary English Version says, envy and jealousy will kill a stupid fool. That's pretty blunt, I would say. Yeah. The English Standard Version, another pretty modern translation, says, surely vexation kills the fool and jealousy slays the simple. And then the Old Geneva Bible, the one that the Pilgrims used, doubtless anger killeth the foolish and envy slayeth the idiot. Wow, that's pretty sharp, you know. So here's the answer to the question, I think. The Hebrew language that the Old Testament was written in did not make that distinction between jealousy and envy. English, being a more precise language with a lot more words and that kind of thing, does make that distinction, but the translators have a problem choosing between the two. So I think that line is pretty fuzzy. So that's all I can tell you about jealousy and envy. Maybe that's more than you wanted to know, but let's get back to Genesis chapter 6, where Noah has been told, I'm going to bring an end to the creation as we know it, and you are to build this ark. And I picked out from chapter 6 some of the highlights of it. Noah was told that God would destroy the earth by flood, so he should build an ark. He should take aboard his 3 sons and their wives. This ark was to be made out of gopher wood, and the most modern equivalent I can find is cypress wood. If you subscribe to the idea that a cubit was 1.5 feet, then the dimensions of the ark were as follows: 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet high. It was lined with pitch, obviously, to keep the water out. It had only 1 door and 1 window. He was to take aboard 7 pairs of clean animals, 2 pairs of unclean animals, food for the animals and the people. It's interesting, there's no mention here in the construction of this vessel of a rudder or sails or anything to navigate. Flotation was the only objective. It's the only thing they were concerned about. And as Noah is making these preparations, he gets the first mention of a covenant. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But God promised him a covenant as he was, before the flood even happened, as he was doing this. Now, if you're ever in Williamstown, Kentucky, there is apparently a place called the Ark Encounter, and someone has built a replica, a full-size replica of the Ark. Just to give you an idea of the scale of it, in the back, this little thing right here that's white on one end and orange on the other, that is a tour bus parked next to this replica. So you can get some idea of the size and the scale of it. Has anybody ever been to this? Oh, you have? Okay. What'd you think? Yeah. Yeah, yeah. It looks like pretty faithful to the Scripture as well. There is, you can see there's 1 door at one end of this, and 3 levels, I believe. Yeah. And I'm just thinking, how dark must that have been? You know, there's not a lot of places to let the sun in. So, but if you want to see that, it's in Williamstown, Kentucky. All right. Let's ponder this. Why do you think more clean animals than unclean animals were included in the ark? And you should be able to answer this question if you've peeked ahead into chapter 8. Pardon? Balance? You think it was a balance? Okay, but the unclean ones were sacrifices. That's it. As soon as Noah got off the ark, he offered a sacrifice from among the clean animals, and so I think that's probably the answer. Okay, now here's an interesting question. Genesis chapter 7, verse 10 says that Noah and his company were in the ark 7 days before the flood started. What do you think Noah thought during those 7 quiet days? I mean, there's all this build up. Hurry up, get the thing built, get the animals aboard, close the door, and silence for 7 days. What do you think? What do you think Noah was thinking about that time? Okay, maybe they're just settling into a rhythm of how the chores all get taken care of. Okay, before the jostling starts with the waves and that kind of thing. All right. Anything else? Yeah, I think so. Was this was this a massive joke that somebody pulled on me that I've built this monstrosity? I've gathered up all these animals, and where's the flood? You know. I think you're right. Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're probably right. Okay. We won't read all of chapters 7 and 8, but you've probably read long ago some of the significant happenings. What happened during the time that Noah and family were on the ark? There's a timeline in your book that I think is helpful, page 25. And I've tinkered with it a little bit because I think the first 7 days before the rain started was significant, so I numbered it a little bit differently. But these are some of the significant happenings. In the ark, 7 days, the rain starts. In 40 days, it gets pummeled from above and from below as well with water. And after about 5 months, something like that, the ark came to rest on the Ararat Mountains. But still, there's water everywhere. There's no place to set foot. At day 231, the mountaintops became visible. Then there's the account of the raven being sent out multiple times, and the dove and that kind of thing. On the 320th day, the cover was removed from the ark. I didn't remember any specifics about building a cover, but it says that it was removed. And then finally, after over a year in the ark, Noah and family were able to walk out, set their foot on dry land again. So those are some of the significant things that happened. One of the things that's compelling about the flood is that within every major culture, there's some kind of story that's been passed down about a giant flood that covered the earth. It's common in many, many cultures. Here's one from the Babylonians. And you can see it's not exactly in agreement with the Genesis account, but some of the similarities are pretty striking. This is about towards the end of this flood from the Babylonian standpoint. Sent forth a dove, set free a dove. Dove came back, but went forth, but came back. Since no resting place for it was visible, she turned around. Then I sent forth and set free a swallow. The swallow went forth, but came back. No resting place for it was visible. She turned round. Then I set forth and sent free a raven. The raven went forth, and seeing that the waters had diminished, he eats, caws, and turns not around. You know, there's pretty striking similarities there. And I could have gotten some other accounts from other cultures as well, but the idea of a giant flood that covers the earth was present in virtually every civilization's legends and lore. Yes?
My wife and I were watching a documentary this past week
Yeah.
places in Asia and China.
Yeah.
Where it was talked about flood.
Yeah, it wasn't just in the Middle East. It was,
Middle East.
yeah, that's right. Yes, sir.
Indigenous people do as well.
Pardon?
Indigenous
Yeah,
people
yeah.
do as well.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So it's there and present in just kind of hand-me-down fashion, and it's just present in everywhere. All right. Let's ponder this question. Some have observed that the flood was an uncreation. Describe some parts of the creation that were undone by the flood. God went through this creation process, took great care in it, and in the flood, some things were undone. What can you think of? Yeah, yeah, right. The living things that had a great deal of care put into their creation, they're wiped out. All right. Early in the creation story, the water was separated from the land. In the flood, the water just overwhelmed the land again. All right. Animal and human life begins at creation, but for the most part, it ended with the flood. In the creation story, one man's sins, Adam's, brought death into the world. Righteous Noah preserved life and kept it going. So the flood could be viewed as kind of an undoing of creation and a starting all over again as well. Some have also observed that Noah exited the ark into a second creation. Describe some aspects of the creation that were duplicated when Noah exited the ark. Yeah, they went back into their proper place. Okay. In chapter 9, verse 1, as Noah left, he was told to be fruitful and multiply, just like Adam and Eve were. Okay. All right. Humans were again to dominate plant and animal life. God told Noah, take charge. This is your creation. The sacredness of life was reaffirmed. Let's read chapter 9, verses 1 through 7. Volunteer reader for that.
Then God blessed Noah and his sons, saying to them, be fruitful and increase in number, and fill the earth. The fear and dread of you will fall upon all the beasts of the earth, and all the birds of the air, upon every creature that moves along the ground, and upon all the fish of the sea. They are given into your hands. Everything that lives and moves will be food for you. Just as I gave you the green plants, I now give you everything. But you must not eat meat that has its livelihood still in it. And for your lifeblood I will surely demand an accounting. I will demand an accounting from every animal. And then from each man too, I will demand an accounting for the life of his fellow man. Whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed. For in the image of God has God made man. As for you, be fruitful and increase in number, multiply on the earth and increase upon it.
Okay. So coming out of the ark, it says that God blessed Noah and his sons, and he told them, be fruitful and multiply. He told them that you're in charge. Verse 2, the fear and the dread of you shall rest on every animal of the earth. In other words, even though there's some animals out there that are bigger than you, that are stronger than you, that are faster than you, you are still the dominant figure in all of creation. And then in verses 6 and 7, it's verses 6 rather, the sacredness of life was reaffirmed, I would say. It was originally affirmed after Cain killed Abel, and it got specified again here in chapter 9. All right, let's read on a little bit. I'd like for someone to read verses 8 through 17, and now we get to reading about the covenant that God promised Noah before he went onto the ark. Okay.
Now, verse 8. And God spake unto Noah and to his sons with him, saying, And behold, I establish my covenant with you, and with your seed after you, and with every living creature that is with you, of the fowl, of the cattle, and of every living beast that is on the earth with you, from all that go out of the ark, every beast of the earth. And I will establish my covenant with you, neither shall all flesh be cut off any more by the waters of the flood, neither shall there be any more flood to destroy the earth. And God said, this is the token of the covenant which I make between me and you and every living creature that is with you for perpetual generations. I do set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a token for a covenant between me and the earth. And it shall come to pass, when I bring a cloud over the earth, that the bow shall be seen in the cloud. And I will remember my covenant, which is between me and you and every living creature of the flesh. And the waters shall no more become a flood to destroy all the flesh. And the bow, this is the rainbow, right?
Right.
And the bow shall be the cloud, and I will look upon it, that I may remember the everlasting covenant between God and every living creature, and of all flesh that is in the earth. And God said to Noah, this is the token of the covenant which I have established between me and all flesh that is upon the earth.
All right. Define the word covenant. Okay, is it an agreement? Promise, for sure. Pardon? Yeah, it's a contract. It's more formal than just, hey, let's go to Burger King for lunch or something casual like that. It's okay. There's some intentionality, some thought put into it, some promises attached to it. Usually, there's some kind of a ceremony, a meal, or mounting a plaque or something, some way to commemorate it so that it doesn't disappear from memory. Here's the definition that I found: a solemn agreement between two parties, usually made sacred by an oath or a ritual. Now, there are three different kinds of covenants in the ancient world, and we can, and in a certain sense, they're still present today. Suzerainty covenant. It's made between a strong party and a weaker party. In this covenant, the stronger party protects the weaker in exchange for the loyalty of the weaker party. The example that I would give you is at the end of World War II. You remember the picture of the battleship Missouri and representatives of the Axis powers, well, Japan mainly, and the Allied powers met. They signed this agreement. Now, the agreement was very, very one-sided. It said that Japan was totally surrendered, that they were not to build up their military again, that they would depend upon the protection of the Allied powers, and we will dictate what kind of government you will have, and there were a lot of stipulations, and it was very, very one-sided. The Allies had won the battle, they had won the war, and they were the strong party, and the Japanese were the weaker party, and so it was very, very one-sided. A covenant among equals can take place where each party agrees to do certain things to sustain the covenant. The best example I can offer you is marriage vows. A man and a woman stand before an audience. Each of them pledges to do certain things, bring certain things into the marriage. And so both parties have equal responsibilities. Then there's what they call a royal grant covenant, where a stronger party agrees to unilaterally grant certain things to a weaker party with no conditions attached whatsoever. The example I can give you is the first one I can think of is the Magna Carta. In this agreement, and this goes all the way back to 1215, the King of England just said, "Here is what I'm going to do for you." And basically the agreement said that the king was responsible to obey the laws just like the citizens were. And there were a number of things attached to it, but it was just very one-sided in the sense that the king said, "Here is what I'm going to do for you." Okay, so that's the background on covenants. What was the promise that was made to Noah in his covenant that we just read about? Yeah, never destroy the earth by flood. What was the sign of it? Rainbow. Yeah. Rainbows are, forget the attachment to this covenant, but rainbows are really beautiful. And it's just amazing that he chose to use that as a sign of the covenant. Who were the beneficiaries of that covenant? Yeah, all living things. No, not just the humans, not just Noah and his family, but all people who would live on the earth afterwards, but the animals and plant life and all that kind of thing that could be destroyed by a worldwide flood. All right, now, of the three types of covenants on the previous slide, what type of covenant was this Noahic covenant? You think it was all three? I can identify it with one of the three. Yeah. God just said, here's what I'm going to do for you. No, you don't have to do anything in return, but this is my pledge to you. Okay. For whose memory was this covenant intended? This is a tricky question. Yeah. I think the impulse would be to say, "Oh, this is for our memory, so we remember." But in that description, God says, "This is my reminder. This is my reminder." I don't know that there's any other covenant exactly like that. So, pardon? Yeah, yeah. I'm surprised you got it as quickly as you did, because most people when I ask that question, they would say, it's a reminder of the people, and it does. But God said, "That's my reminder." All right, we're ready to close out the life of Noah now, and I'm sorry to say it. For all the good things he did in his life, it kind of ended on a downer. Somebody read verses 18 of chapter 9 to the end of the chapter.
Sons of Noah who came out of the boat with their father, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Ham is the father of Canaan. From these three sons Noah came all of the people who now populate the earth. After the flood, Noah began to cultivate the ground. He planted a vineyard. Then he drank some wine and made, and became drunk, and lay naked inside the tent. Ham, the father of Canaan, saw that his father was naked, and went outside and told his brothers. Then Shem and Japheth took a robe, held it over their shoulders, and backed into a tent and covered the father. As they did this, they looked the other way so they would not see him naked. When Noah woke up from his stupor, he learned what Ham, his youngest son, had done. Then he cursed Canaan, the son of Ham. May Canaan be cursed, may he be the lowest of the servants and his relatives. And Noah said, "May the Lord, the God of Shem, be blessed, and may Canaan be his servant. May God expand the territory of Japheth. May Japheth share the prosperity of Shem, and may Canaan be his servant." Noah lived another 350 years after the great flood. He lived 950 years and then he died.
Okay, so they come out of the ark. Noah becomes a tiller of the ground. He plants a vineyard, and it says he was the first to plant a vineyard. He drank some of the wine from it, became intoxicated, and lay naked in his tent. It's not clear if Noah maybe didn't understand the effects of intoxication, what it might lead you to do. But at any rate, he is uncovered in his tent, and Ham gets one of his sons gets a great deal of condemnation for this. What was Ham's sin in all of this? Yeah, I think you're getting there. Yeah, he went in, saw the shape his father was in, went out and told the others. And the implication is maybe they were, maybe he did it in a kind of a mocking or humiliating kind of a way, but he saw that situation and took no action upon it himself. How did Noah know what Ham had done to him? Probably so. It doesn't say that, but in all likelihood, that's the case. Now, here's one I can't really answer myself. Why was Canaan cursed and not Ham? I did a lot of reading on this and couldn't. I saw some answers, but nothing that I really believed. Okay. Yeah, he was the father of a nation, but why didn't Ham bear the consequences? Okay. Yeah. 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 Yeah, I'm sure he felt it. I'm sure he felt. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. A car, you. Yeah. Okay. All right. What was the nature of his curse? Yeah, he's going to be a servant. He's never going to be the boss anywhere he goes. Okay. Now, the early genealogies of Genesis generally follow the formula: X person was born, had some sons, he lived for Y years, and then he died. For the most part, not much is said about these men. Noah and Enoch are exceptions. So what's the lesson for us out of all that? All these other people didn't seem to make a mark.
The people who made a mark are the ones who walked with God.
Yeah, yeah. So the important thing is not how long you live or how many children you have or anything like that. It is, what is the content of your life? What does it really stand for? What does it represent? Okay. And these other people are just a list of names to us for the most part. All right. We have seen that Noah has lived out his time, and he died at the age of 950. What was most impressive to you about the life of Noah? Yeah. Obviously, continuing humanity through the flood. Okay. I notice his unhesitant obedience. I compare Noah to Moses. When Moses got called to lead the children of Israel out of Egypt, there's a chapter or two there of Moses just trying to dodge the responsibility, trying to make the excuses. Anytime that God tells Noah to do something, the next verse is Noah went and did it. He was a simple, unquestioning kind of a guy. Right. Okay, I'm sure that had something to do with it. Yeah. And Moses, I think, had some fear involved because the last thing he knew from Pharaoh is that his life was in danger, Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Good. Shavaz?
I think Moses also may have been dealing with guilt and shame, the reason why he was even in the wilderness, because he did kill someone, so he may not have felt worthy to be able to do anything.
Yeah. And the difference in power there was between Pharaoh and him was frightening to him. Yeah. All right. Noah lives on in the New Testament. Jesus used him as an example of the sudden